tell you what mistake he made, which is also the same mistake that Biden made, which is also the same mistake that Trump made, was to try to pretend like the Palestinian quote-unquote issue didn't exist, that you didn't have millions of people in Gaza seething under a multi-year blockade, that you didn't have illegal settlements and occupation in the West Bank, that you did not have to deal with these millions of people who were under an illegal apartheid system. And so you had the Trump administration that moved forward with the Abraham Accords, again, ignoring that situation. You had the Biden administration moving ahead with attempted normalization of Saudi and Israeli relations, all pretending that this problem with the Palestinians did not exist. I think the fact that the world forgot that this was unfolding is a key part of the problem here.
My question would be, whose fault is that problem, though? Because you seem to want to blame it on Israel, and you want to seem to take away Israel's right to self-defense.
No, I don't. I don't want to take away their right to self-defense. What I do want to take away is their right to have an apartheid state,
which they don't. Which they don't. Come on, Crystal. You know. Come on, Crystal. You know that. You know.
Leland,
no.
right now. Hold on. Let me just say.
Go ahead.
Let me just say. What Hamas did, terrorists. Massacre.
Oh, thank you. That's
horrendous.
Huge of you to be able to point out.
Innocent civilians should not be targeted, whether they are innocent Israeli civilians or innocent Palestinian civilians,
there's
which you seem to have no issue with.
No, I have a huge issue with it. The fact of the matter is I've lived there for 4 years. I've reported on it. I realize there's an enormous difference in moral clarity between Hamas that targets civilians, which you agree they do, and the Israelis that go out of their way not to target civilians. There is an enormous difference between the two.
Is it to the parents of the 1,000 plus children in Gaza right now who are dead, that Israel theoretically maybe has less barbaric tactics?
So let me just
They've already killed more in Gaza than in the horrific Hamas attacks.
So whose
one atrocity does not
okay, you've said that 3 times
another atrocity.
Whose responsibility is the fact that those civilians are still there? Is the responsibility of the Israelis? Or is it the responsibility of Hamas that's setting up checkpoints to keep civilians as human shields? Or is it the responsibility of the Egyptians that won't let them through Rafah? Or is it the responsibility of the rest of the Arab world that will not take a single Palestinian refugee to allow them to escape a murderous regime in Hamas?
There is plenty of blame to go around. What I will tell you, though, is are you aware that Netanyahu, as a policy to try to short-circuit any efforts at peace and the establishment of a Palestinian state, intentionally propped up Hamas because he saw them as a useful foil. These are not my words. These are his words. That is why the Israeli people overwhelmingly want him to be out of a job because of that failure, because of the intelligence failure, because of the military failure. And now we're going to stand by.
Now we're on to Israeli politics.
We're going to stand by and say it's fine for them to drop white phosphorus on civilians.
Which they haven't dropped anyway.
Yes, they have, according to Human Rights Watch.
First of all, do you condemn this terror attack by Hamas?
Well, I'm not sure why we should be spending time instead of putting context, asking me about my opinion. I'm here as an analyst, and I don't represent anybody, Mark. I don't think this is the relevant question. We seem to be obsessed with asking the same questions, with talking about the same things, with demanding some sort of line to be drawn between good guys and bad guys, and you should know better. You should know that the story is far more complex and nuanced than that.
Well, it is possible to have a human reaction to these things,
of course,
and
I
just wondered what yours was.
Viewers time to give them context rather than my opinion, which naturally would be that I can't tolerate to see any civilian put in a situation of danger. And unfortunately, this is commonplace in a country that has been under occupation and brutal oppression for over half a century. It doesn't always make the news on your screen, but it's an everyday reality for Palestinians.
Well, it quite often does make the news on our screen. But the reason I'm asking, Noor, is that you are an analyst and you know about these things. And I just wondered what you thought was achieved by, murdering women and children, by massacring people at a music festival and taking these hostages. I wonder, you know, what is Hamas seeking to achieve by that?
Well, let me start from the beginning, which is that for months, and even here on Sky News, experts and observers like me have warned the situation is reaching a breaking point. Israel is killing a record number of Palestinian civilians. It is imprisoning a record number of Palestinians, demolishing a record number of Palestinian homes. There is absolutely no horizon. You have a right-wing government that has stated its goal as decimating hope for Palestinian statehood. So that end reality brought us to where we are now, where diplomatic efforts are labeled as diplomatic terrorism, where academics who speak out are labeled as anti-Semitic, where any mobilization in civil spaces for justice, for Palestinian rights is also labeled and maligned. There were no avenues. And it was an opportunity for groups like Hamas and others who see no other option but armed action to take center stage. That failure to create a horizon is exactly what brought us all to this very tragic point where everybody is suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly, Palestinians have legitimate grievances. My point is really, what does a terror attack like this do to help the Palestinians?
Well, again, it is not about that one attack. It's about a dead-end situation that, you know, we're with no options for a breakthrough, with no options for an end to the occupation, with no options for an end to the siege of 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, whose majority are under 35 years of age. A 20-year-old in Gaza has already survived 5 wars. So one of them at least lasted for 51 days. In every one of them, hundreds of children were killed. Entire families were wiped out, just as they are being right now in Gaza. So the answer really for me, has to do with changing the mantra and changing the way we deal with this. This is not about good guys versus bad guys. It's not about whether you allow Israel, which is accused of documented war crimes, to commit even more war crimes in order to maintain its stranglehold and control over the Palestinians. It's about ending this once and for all, about giving Palestinians their right to be free from this cycle, free from being beholden to a dynamic of violence and brutality, both ways.
Do you guys remember Clarissa Ward, you know, the CNN actress, the CNN reporter, that during her coverage in Israel, she pretended that there is missile targeting her and whatnot, and she did like an awesome acting. Today, she was confronted by this Egyptian activist on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing. And I want you guys to listen to this smart, educated, eloquent Egyptian woman confronting Clarissa Ward.
Where are your condemnations? Where's your channel covering this? Cover this! Say the truth. We understand you're an employee. You're just a puppet. You're just a mouthpiece. Come talk to me like a human being. Come talk to me like a human being. Thank you. I understand you have your foreign policy. No, I've heard you. I've heard you. You hear me. I understand you have your foreign policy. I understand you speak for your government. I understand you represent your government. But that being said, you're a country that's claimed free speech. Your customized democracy is actually what led to Hamas. And now we are watching an occupation, and we are watching the result of your silence, of your misrepresentation of Arabs. And we stand with the Palestinians, and we stand with Arabs. And they try and change the narrative because you own the narrative, see? This is our problem. You own the narrative. You own the United Nations. You own Hollywood. You own all these mouthpieces. Where are our voices? Our voices need to be heard as well. We've been watching your channels, and instead of mourning our dead, instead of mourning these Palestinian children, we've been having to deal with more dehumanization of Arabs. You have your foreign policy, but where's your humanity? Where? Where is your humanity? How many children died? I ask you to condemn the Israeli government. Air this! Air this! You liar!
Good.
You liar! We stand with Palestine. What do you have to say for yourself? What do you have to say for yourself? Did you watch these children die?